The cameras were rolling, the room was already tense, and nobody expected what happened next. One comment, one accusation, and suddenly the entire atmosphere of Love and Hip Hop Atlanta exploded into chaos. Fans watching from home could barely believe their ears when Spice, never one to hold back, suddenly turned her attention directly toward Bambi, and what came out of her mouth left the entire cast stunned. "You've been fake from day one," Spice snapped, her voice cutting through the room like a blade. The moment felt like time froze. Bambi's expression changed instantly, her eyes narrowing as the rest of the cast shifted uncomfortably in their seats. You could practically feel the tension through the screen, because this wasn't just a playful jab or a little reality TV shade, this sounded personal. Very personal. And if you know anything about Spice, you know she doesn't throw accusations like that lightly. Within seconds, whispers started spreading around the room. Cast members exchanged looks. Some tried to stay quiet, others leaned forward like they knew something was coming. Because apparently, according to Spice, the story everyone thought they knew about Bambi might not be the truth at all. But what exactly did Spice mean by fake? Was she talking about loyalty, behind-the-scenes betrayal, or something even deeper that fans never saw coming? Bambi quickly fired back, clearly not ready to let that accusation slide. "Fake me," she shot back, disbelief turning into anger. "Girl, you don't even know half the story." Now emotions were running high. Voices started rising. The room felt like a powder keg ready to explode, and everyone watching knew this moment was about to spiral into something much bigger. Because according to insiders close to the cast, this confrontation had been building for weeks, maybe even months. Secret conversations, rumors behind the scenes, and a betrayal that might completely change how fans see both Spice and Bambi. What started as a casual group gathering was now turning into one of the most explosive confrontations the show had seen all season. And if Spice's claims were true, then the drama between these two women was far from over. In fact, what happened next left the entire cast shocked, and fans completely divided. The room had gone completely silent after Spice dropped those words. You could feel the tension thick in the air as every single person in the room turned their eyes toward Bambi. Nobody expected Spice to say something that direct. Not in front of everyone, not on camera. Bambi slowly leaned back in her chair, blinking a few times like she couldn't believe what she had just heard. "Fake," she repeated slowly, letting the word hang in the air. Spice didn't move. She sat there calmly, arms crossed, her eyes locked directly on Bambi like she had been waiting for this moment for a long time. "Yeah, fake," Spice said again, her voice colder this time. "I said what I said." A few people around the table shifted nervously. Scrappy cleared his throat. Kirk looked down at his drink. Even the producers standing off camera seemed unsure if they should step in or just let the moment unfold. Because anyone who watched Love and Hip Hop Atlanta knew one thing: when Spice gets serious, things are about to explode. Bambi slowly leaned forward now, her voice rising. "Nah, hold up," she said. "You ain't about to sit here and call me fake like you know me like that." Spice smirked. Not a big smile, just that small knowing smirk that made the situation even worse. "Oh, I know enough," Spice replied. "Trust me." A low murmur started spreading across the room. Some of the cast members exchanged looks. Because clearly, Spice wasn't bluffing. There was something behind this. Something that had been building up. And then Spice leaned forward slightly. "You want to talk about loyalty?" she said quietly. Bambi's eyes narrowed. "What about it?" Spice tilted her head. "Funny how somebody can smile in your face, and then talk crazy behind your back." The words hit the room like a bomb. Suddenly, everyone was paying attention. Bambi blinked once, twice, then she laughed. But it wasn't a real laugh. It was the kind of laugh people do when they're trying to hide that they're irritated. "Girl, please," Bambi said, waving her hand dismissively. "Ain't nobody talking behind your back?" Spice's eyes flashed. "You sure about that?" "I know about that," Bambi fired back. Spice let out a small sigh like she was tired of pretending. "See, that's the problem," she said slowly. "You think people don't hear things." Scrappy shifted in his seat, because now it was getting uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. "Spice," Scrappy said cautiously, "what exactly are you talking about?" Spice looked at him for a moment, then looked back at Bambi. "I'm talking about them little conversations you've been having." Bambi's expression hardened. "What conversations?" Spice leaned back again, shaking her head. "Don't play dumb." The room went quiet again, because the way Spice said it made it clear. She had receipts. Or at least she believed she did. Bambi crossed her arms now. "Nah," she said firmly. "If you got something to say, say it." Spice raised her eyebrows. "Oh, you want me to say it?" Bambi didn't hesitate. Say it. For a moment, Spice didn't speak. She just stared at Bambi. And that silence somehow made everything worse, because everyone could tell something big was about to come out. Then Spice spoke. You been telling people I switched up? Gasps came from a couple people at the table. Bambi scoffed immediately. That's what this is about, she said. Girl, please. Spice didn't smile. You told them I forgot who supported me when I first came around. Bambi rolled her eyes. Because that's how it looked. Spice's voice suddenly got louder. Looked to who? To everybody, Bambi shot back. The energy in the room instantly spiked. Voices were rising. People were leaning forward. And fans watching later would say this was the exact moment the entire situation started spiraling out of control. Because Spice slammed her hand lightly on the table. Don't twist this, she warned. You didn't say that out of concern. Bambi laughed again. Oh really? So now you reading my intentions? I don't gotta read them. Spice replied sharply. I heard them. Now the room went completely still. That sentence changed everything. Bambi's eyes locked on Spice. What you mean you heard them? Spice didn't hesitate. Exactly what I said. A heavy pause followed. Everyone around the table looked confused. Because now the situation had gone from accusations to something much deeper. Bambi leaned forward slowly. Who you hear that from? Spice gave a small shrug. Don't worry about that. Nah, Bambi said firmly. If you accusing me of something, you better say names. Spice tilted her head again. Why? So you can go call them after this. A few people let out quiet ooh sounds under their breath. The tension was becoming almost unbearable. Bambi shook her head in disbelief. You know what? She said. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Spice frowned. What you talking about? Bambi pointed at her. This attitude. Spice leaned back slowly. What attitude? This whole thing where you acting like everybody against you? Bambi said. Like nobody can say anything without you turning it into drama. Spice laughed once. But it wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind that carried frustration. Oh, so now I'm the problem. Bambi didn't hesitate. Sometimes, yet, you could almost hear the collective gasp around the table. Because nobody expected Bambi to say that directly. Not to Spice. Spice stared at her for a moment, then nodded slowly. Wow. Scrappy rubbed his face nervously. Man, this going left real fast. But nobody was listening anymore. Because Spice leaned forward again, her voice lower now, more serious. You wanna know the real reason I called you fake? Bambi didn't flinch. Go ahead. And that's when Spice said the words that would completely change the conversation. Because the same night you was smiling in my face. She paused. The room held its breath. You was telling somebody I wasn't going to last on this show. The words hung in the air like a shock wave. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Bambi's face froze. The smile she had been forcing slowly fading away as the room processed what Spice had just said. That's what you really think of me? Spice continued, her voice calm but sharp. That I'm just temporary. Bambi blinked a few times before shaking her head. Nah, she said quickly. That ain't what happened. Spice tilted her head. Then explain it. Bambi leaned back in her chair, clearly trying to collect herself while the rest of the cast watched like they were witnessing a train wreck they couldn't look away from. First of all, Bambi said, pointing a finger toward Spice. You coming at me like you got the whole story, and you clearly don't. Spice's expression didn't change. Then tell the real story. Bambi sighed loudly. What I said was this whole situation around you is messy. Everybody was talking about it. And I said, if you keep going at people the way you do, it might not last. A few cast members nodded slowly, but Spice wasn't convinced. That's not what I heard. Bambi scoffed. Because whoever told you that wanted drama. Scrappy leaned forward. Hold up, he said carefully. Who even told you that, Spice? Spice glanced at him briefly before looking back at Bambi. That's not important. Bambi laughed loudly. Oh, it's very important. Not really, Spice replied. Yeah, it is, Bambi snapped. Because somebody clearly lying. The tension in the room kept rising. Kirk whispered something to one of the producers off camera while the rest of the cast stayed glued to the confrontation. Spice tapped her fingers slowly on the table. Let me ask you something, she said. Bambi crossed her arms. What? Did you say my name in a conversation about the show? Bambi paused. Yeah. Spice nodded. Did you say you thought I was doing too much? Another pause. Yeah. Spice spread her hand slightly. Then, why you acting shocked? Bambi leaned forward again, frustration growing on her face. Because you twisting the words. I'm repeating them, Spice shot back. Out of context, Bambi said. Context, don't change disrespect. The room erupted with murmurs again. Fans watching later would say this was one of the most uncomfortable arguments the show had seen all season because neither woman was backing down. And suddenly one of the other cast members spoke up. I heard that conversation too. Every head turned instantly. Bambi's eyes widened. Wait, what? The woman sitting across the table shifted nervously. I'm just saying. People was talking. Bambi looked around the room like she had just realized something. So y'all just been gossiping about me? Spice raised an eyebrow. See, now you getting defensive. Because this is messy. Bambi snapped. Spice leaned closer. No, what's messy is pretending you support somebody when you don't. Bambi slammed her hand on the table. I did support you. The sound echoed across the room. Everyone jumped slightly. Spice didn't move. Support, she repeated slowly. Yes, support. Spice leaned back again, shaking her head slowly like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Support is not smiling in my face, then questioning me behind my back. Bambi's voice got louder. I questioned your actions because you were acting different. Different how? Spice challenged. Like fame got to your head. The room went dead silent, because that sentence hit hard. Spice stared at her. Say that again. Bambi hesitated for half a second, then doubled down. You started acting like you better than everybody. Spice laughed in disbelief. Wow. Scrappy rubbed his temples again. This is getting crazy. But the conversation wasn't slowing down. If anything, it was escalating. Spice leaned forward slowly. Let me make something clear, she said. Her voice was calm again. Dangerously calm. I worked hard to get where I am. Bambi shrugged. Nobody said you didn't. Then don't act like I'm supposed to shrink myself to make other people comfortable. Bambi rolled her eyes. See, this exactly what I mean. What? You always think somebody attacking you. Spice stared at her. Because people keep doing it. Bambi shook her head. Or maybe you just hearing what you want to hear. Spice's expression hardened. Nah, the tension was thick now. The room felt split right down the middle. Some people clearly sided with Spice. Others looked like they understood Bambi's point. And then another cast member suddenly spoke. This ain't just about one conversation. Everyone turned again. What you mean? Scrappy asked. The woman hesitated before answering. People been feeling this way for a minute. Bambi's jaw dropped. Oh wow. Spice looked genuinely surprised now. What you mean people? Nobody answered immediately. And that silence said everything. Bambi stood up from her chair. So this what we doing now? She said loudly. A whole group ambush. Spice remained seated. Nobody ambushing you. Yes you are. Bambi snapped. Because suddenly everybody got something to say. Spice folded her arms again. Maybe because they've been holding it in. Bambi looked around the room again, clearly hurt now. So none of y'all had the courage to say it to my face. No one spoke. The silence stretched again. Fans watching later would say this moment was the exact point where emotions started turning from anger into something deeper, because Bambi looked genuinely upset. And Spice noticed it, but she still didn't back down. This is what happens when you play both sides, Spice said quietly. Bambi turned toward her immediately. What sides? The side where you pretend to be cool with me, Spice replied. And the side where you question everything I do. Bambi pointed toward the door. You know what, Spice? If you got a problem with me, you could have come to me directly. Spice raised an eyebrow. I'm doing that right now. No, Bambi snapped. You doing it in front of everybody? Spice shrugged. Because that's where the conversation started. Bambi laughed bitterly. This is wild. Scrappy finally stood up too. All right, hold up, he said. Everybody need to calm down. But nobody was calming down. Because Spice suddenly said something that shocked everyone again. You want to know the funniest part? Bambi turned back toward her slowly. What? Spice leaned forward. The person who told me all this was someone you trust. The entire room erupted. People started talking over each other. Bambi's eyes widened again. Who? Spice didn't answer. Spice who? Bambi demanded. Spice just shook her head. You'll figure it out. Nah, don't do that, Bambi said angrily. Don't throw that out there, then stay quiet. Spice shrugged again. Maybe they'll tell you themselves. Bambi looked around the table, suspicion suddenly spreading across her face. So one of y'all been running back telling Spice stuff. Nobody spoke. And that silence made everything worse. Because now mistrust was spreading across the entire group. Bambi shook her head slowly. This is fake. Spice laughed. That's exactly what I said earlier. Bambi pointed at her again. No, what's fake is you pretending like you didn't enjoy this moment. Spice frowned. What moment? This whole confrontation, Bambi said. You've been waiting for this? Spice's expression didn't change. But she didn't deny it either. Maybe I was waiting for honesty, she replied. Bambi scoffed. Honesty, Jer. Bambi leaned closer across the table. Then let's be honest. Spice raised an eyebrow. Go ahead. Bambi's voice dropped slightly. You stopped trusting people the moment the spotlight got bigger. The room went silent again. Spice stared at her for several seconds before responding. And maybe I had a reason. Bambi tilted her head. What reason? Spice's eyes narrowed slightly. Because somebody in this group been trying to tear me down. The words sent another wave through the room. Bambi shook her head slowly. You really believe that? I know it. Bambi crossed her arms again. So who is it then? Spice didn't answer. Instead, she looked around the table slowly, one by one, like she was scanning every face. And that alone made people uncomfortable. Spice, Scrappy said cautiously. What? You making it sound like somebody plotting against you? Spice shrugged. Maybe they are. Bambi laughed again. This is crazy. Spice leaned back. What's crazy is pretending everything cool when it's not. Bambi shook her head. You know what I think? Spice smirked slightly. What? I think somebody got in your ear and you believed them without checking facts. Spice leaned forward again immediately. Oh, I checked. Bambi frowned. Ha! Spice looked directly into her eyes. Because the person who told me, showed me messages. The entire room exploded with reactions. Gasps. People talking at once. Scrappy's eyes went wide. Messages. Bambi looked completely stunned. What messages? Spice didn't hesitate this time. Messages where you was talking about me? Bambi's face went pale. That's impossible. Spice tilted her head slowly. Is it? Bambi stared at her for a long moment, then suddenly shook her head. Nah, Spice waited. Nah, what? Bambi pointed at her again. Because now I know somebody lying. Spice crossed her arms. Or maybe somebody got caught. Bambi laughed in disbelief again. You know what, Spice? What? Bambi leaned forward slowly. If somebody showed you messages, then show them. The room instantly went quiet again. Everyone turned toward Spice, waiting because if those messages existed, this entire situation was about to explode even bigger. Spice reached slowly toward her phone sitting on the table, and when the cast saw that movement, several of them leaned forward immediately, because suddenly this wasn't just an argument anymore. This was about evidence, real proof. Bambi's voice came out quieter now. Go ahead, she said. Show everybody. Spice picked up her phone, unlocked it, and looked back up at Bambi. You sure you want that? Bambi didn't hesitate. Do it. Spice stared at her for another second, then slowly turned the phone screen toward the table. And the moment the first person saw what was on that screen, their jaw dropped. Oh wow. The reaction spread instantly across the table as more people leaned closer. Whispers started. Gasps. Shock. Bambi's face slowly changed as she tried to see the screen from across the table. What is that? She demanded. Nobody answered, because what they were seeing was clearly something serious. Something none of them expected. Spice looked back at Bambi calmly. Still think I'm making this up? Bambi stood frozen. Let me see that. Spice pulled the phone slightly closer to herself. You sure? Yes. Bambi snapped. Spice slowly slid the phone across the table. And the moment Bambi looked down at the screen, her entire expression changed. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. The room watched in complete silence as she read the messages, one after another, and suddenly the confidence she had earlier started fading. Scrappy noticed it first. Bambi? He said carefully. She didn't answer. She was still staring at the phone, reading, processing, and then finally she looked back up at Spice, but this time her expression wasn't angry. It was confused, and maybe even a little hurt. This ain't what you think, she said quietly. Spice folded her arms again. Then explain it. Bambi looked back down at the screen, then back at Spice. And what she said next shocked everyone in the room. Because the person you think sent those messages. She paused, her voice tight. Isn't the person who actually wrote them? The entire table went silent again. The words hung in the air as everyone tried to process what Bambi had just said. Spice's expression changed slightly for the first time that night. What do you mean by that? She asked slowly. Bambi looked back down at the phone in her hand. Her brows pulled together like something suddenly wasn't adding up in her mind. This conversation, she said quietly. I remember it. Spice crossed her arms. Then you know exactly what it says. Bambi shook her head. No, I know what part of it says. People leaned closer around the table, because now the tone of the argument had shifted again. This wasn't just yelling anymore. Now it sounded like something deeper was unraveling. Bambi looked up again. You're looking at a screenshot, she said. Spice didn't respond, right? Bambi pressed. Spice finally nodded once. Yeah, Bambi exhaled slowly. Then that's the problem. A confused murmur spread across the room. Scrappy leaned forward. What problem? Bambi turned the phone slightly so the others could see the message thread. This isn't the whole conversation. Spice's eyes narrowed. That's the part where you said I wasn't going to last. Bambi shook her head. Yeah, but you missing the part before that? Spice stayed quiet. Bambi looked directly at her now. You ever heard of people cropping messages? A few cast members exchanged looks. Spice frowned slightly. What you trying to say? Bambi pointed at the phone. Whoever sent you this only sent the part that made me look bad. Spice let out a short laugh. That's convenient. It's the truth. Bambi insisted. Spice shook her head slowly. So now somebody out here editing evidence. Bambi didn't hesitate. Yes. The room buzzed again. Because if that was true, then this entire fight had been built on something incomplete. Scrappy rubbed his chin. So what you saying is, there's more messages? A lot more, Bambi replied. Spice leaned forward again. Then why didn't you say that earlier? Bambi's voice rose slightly. Because you didn't show me the phone until just now. That stopped Spice for a moment. Bambi continued. That message came from a conversation where we were talking about the show. Not you as a person. Spice stared at her. That's not how it reads. Because it's missing context. Bambi fired back. She took a breath and looked around the table. I said, if Spice keeps clashing with producers and cast members every episode, the show might not keep her long. Spice's expression hardened. You still talking about me? About the situation, Bambi corrected. Not about you as a person. Spice leaned back again. But she was clearly thinking now. Because doubt had started creeping in. Then why would somebody send me that screenshot like this? She asked. Bambi looked around the table slowly, and suddenly her expression changed again. Because something had just clicked in her mind. Because somebody wanted us fighting. That sentence immediately shifted the energy again. The room got quieter. Everyone started looking at each other suspiciously. Scrappy spoke first. You saying somebody set this up? Bambi nodded slowly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Spice frowned. For what reason? Bambi shrugged slightly. Drama. A few people laughed nervously. Because they were literally on a reality show where drama was currency. But Spice didn't laugh. She was still staring at the phone, replaying everything. Who sent me the messages again? Someone asked quietly. Spice didn't answer immediately. She looked up slowly. Then her eyes moved across the table again, one face at a time, the same way she had earlier. And suddenly people looked uncomfortable, because now it felt like a mystery, like someone in that very room might have started this whole thing. Bambi crossed her arms again. Go ahead, Spice, she said quietly. Tell them who sent it. Spice hesitated. And that hesitation alone made everyone lean forward. It came from someone in this group, she finally said. Immediately the whispers started again. Who? Scrappy asked. Spice didn't answer yet. Bambi's eyes narrowed. See, that's the part that's interesting, she said slowly. Spice looked at her. Why? Because I got a feeling I know exactly who it was. That got everyone's attention. Spice raised an eyebrow. Oh really? Bambi nodded. Yeah, then say it. Bambi paused. For a second, it looked like she was debating whether to go there. But then she spoke. Erica. The room erupted instantly. Several cast members gasped. Scrappy looked stunned. Hold up, WHAT. Spice's eyes widened slightly. Erica. Bambi nodded firmly. Yes. Scrappy shook his head. Nah, that can't be right. But Bambi wasn't backing down. Think about it, she said. Spice leaned forward. Why would Erica do that? Bambi laughed softly. Because she'd been trying to stir things up between people all season. A few people around the table nodded slowly. Others looked unsure. Spice stared at the phone again. She told me she was looking out for me, Spice said quietly. Bambi sighed. Exactly. Scrappy scratched his head. This getting messy. Spice leaned back again. I need to hear this from her. Bambi shrugged. Then call her. Everyone looked at Spice. Because suddenly that seemed like the obvious next step. Spice slowly picked up her phone again. The same phone that had started this whole situation. And she opened her contacts. The room watched in silence. Scrappy whispered. She really about to call her? Spice pressed the call button. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Then finally, the call connected. Hello. Erica's voice came through the speaker. Spice didn't waste time. Erica, she said calmly. I need to ask you something. What's up? The room was so quiet you could hear people breathing. Spice glanced briefly at Bambi before continuing. Did you send me those screenshots of Bambi's messages? There was a pause on the other end of the phone. A noticeable pause. Everyone looked at each other. Because that silence alone felt suspicious. Finally, Erica spoke again. Yeah? The room exploded with reactions. Bambi threw her hands in the air. See? Spice raised a hand for quiet. Why did you send them? Spice asked. Another pause. Because I thought you should see what people were saying. Spice's eyes narrowed. Did you send the whole conversation? Erica hesitated. I sent the part that mattered. Bambi laughed loudly. Exactly. Spice's voice stayed calm. Erica, did you crop the messages? Silence again. Longer this time. And that silence spoke volumes. Erica, Spice pressed. I might have cut out some parts. The room erupted again. Scrappy slapped the table. Man, come on. Bambi shook her head in disbelief. This is exactly what I said. Spice rubbed her forehead slowly. Why would you do that? Erica sounded defensive now. Because the rest of it didn't change the point. It changes everything. Bambi shouted toward the phone. Spice raised her hand again. Let her answer. Erica sighed. Look, I thought Bambi was talking crazy about you and I didn't like it. Bambi scoffed. So you decided to start a whole war. I didn't start anything. Erica replied quickly. I just showed Spice what you said. You showed half of it. Bambi snapped. Spice leaned back in her chair, processing everything. The tension in the room had shifted again. Now the anger wasn't just between Spice and Bambi. Now there was a third player involved. Scrappy shook his head. This is messy as hell. Spice finally spoke again. Erica, do you still have the full conversation? Yeah. Send it to me. Another pause. Right now. Yes, right now. Everyone watched Spice's phone. A few seconds passed. Then a notification appeared. Message received. Spice opened it. This time it wasn't a screenshot. It was the entire message thread, uncropped, uncut. And as Spice scrolled, her expression slowly changed. Bambi watched carefully. Go ahead, she said quietly. Read the part before it. Spice kept scrolling. And suddenly she stopped. Her eyes focused on a line near the top of the conversation. The room waited. What does it say? Scrappy asked. Spice read it silently first. Then out loud. Bambi wrote. Spice is talented but the producers keep putting her in messy situations. Bambi nodded. Keep going. Spice continued reading. If they keep pushing her into conflict every episode, people might get tired of it. Another line. I hope they let her show her music more. The room went quiet. Because that sounded completely different from the narrative earlier. Spice looked up slowly. You said that. Bambi shrugged. Yeah. Spice scrolled further. Until she reached the message that had been cropped earlier. The one that said Spice might not last. But now it looked different in context. It was part of a longer discussion about production and storylines. Spice leaned back slowly. Scrappy whistled. Damn. Bambi crossed her arms again. Told you. Spice looked back at the phone. Then at the group. Then at Bambi. The anger on her face had faded slightly. Replaced by something else. Realization. So this whole fight, she said quietly. Bambi nodded. Was based on a cropped screenshot? Spice exhaled slowly. The room was still processing everything. Scrappy shook his head again. This might be the most unnecessary argument we ever had. Bambi looked at Spice. You see why I said someone wanted us fighting? Spice didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stared at the phone again. Then finally she spoke. Erica. Her voice was calm. Too calm. Which somehow made it more serious. What'd she say? Scrappy asked. Spice showed them the screen. The message was short. We need to talk ASAP. Scrappy shook his head. Oh, she nervous. She probably realized the truth came out. Bambi laughed. So what you gonna say? Scrappy asked. I told her, we'll talk tomorrow, Spice replied. Soon the group began gathering their things and leaving. That was one hell of a night, Scrappy said. Understatement of the year. Bambi laughed. Spice grabbed her bag and smiled. Next time we have dinner, remind me to check everyone's screenshots first. Everyone laughed again. But one thing was clear. The drama wasn't over yet. Because Spice had already made it clear she planned to confront Erica face to face. And when Spice wants answers, she doesn't hold back. So what do you think? Was Spice right to call Bambi out, or was the entire situation manipulated from the beginning? Let us know in the comments below and don't forget to like and subscribe for more explosive drama from Love and Hip Hop Atlanta.